Good morning. The Senate Armed Services Committee meets this morning to consider the nominations of Ms. Alissa M. Starzak to be General Counsel of the Department of the Army, Mr. Franklin R. Parker to be Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, Mr. John Conger to be the Principal Deputy Undersecretary of Defense Comptroller, and Mr. Stephen P. Welby to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. We welcome all of you here this morning, as well as members of your families. As our tradition at the beginning of your testimony, we welcome you to introduce those members of your family joining you this morning. Ms. Starzak is currently the Deputy General Counsel at the Department of Defense. She's also served as counsel and a professional staff member on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and as Assistant General Counsel at the Central Intelligence Agency. I look forward to your testimony on a number of pressing issues inside Army and the Department of Defense. Mr. Parker is currently Chief Counsel of the Maritime Administration in the Department of Transportation. The Navy Office of Manpower and Reserve Affairs has the great responsibility of taking care of our sailors, Marines, and their families, and the Navy's civilian employees. I look forward to your testimony on how you plan to support the most important part of the Navy, its people. Mr. Conger is currently the Assistant Deputy Undersecretary for Installations and Environment. The Comptroller's office, where he has been nominated to serve, has a critical role to play at this time of budgetary challenges. The Department of Defense spends more than $500 billion a year, but after years and years of effort, it still can't pass an audit. The Department is alone among federal agencies in being unable to provide to Congress or the American taxpayer assurances that their dollars are spent as appropriated. It's hardly surprising that, according to the Government Accountability Office, the Department of Defense is at high risk for waste, fraud, and abuse due to decades of financial mismanagement. After 2 decades of empty promises, many of us are extremely skeptical that the department will be able to audit its financial statements in 2017 as the law requires. While the organization of the Comptroller is also dual-hatted to serve as the Chief Financial Officer, those financial management duties are often dominated by the annual work of creating and defending the budget. Mr. Conger, this committee is interested in hearing what steps could be taken now to begin reversing this trend. Finally, Mr. Welby is currently the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Systems Engineering at the Department of Defense. The position of Assistant Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering has long been vacant, so we're eager to have the position filled on a permanent basis. As you know, defense research and innovation is essential to maintaining the cutting-edge technologies that provide superior capabilities and protection for our warfighters. I have concerns regarding the ability of the Defense Department to transition technologies from the laboratory to the warfighter in an effective, efficient, and timely manner. At the same time, the department is chasing innovative companies in places like Silicon Valley, but it doesn't appear to be making the necessary changes to its research, contracting, and acquisition policies that would allow us to take advantage of commercial innovation. The challenges faced by the Department Innovation Unit Experimental, which Secretary Carter launched to better connect the department with Silicon Valley, is one embodiment of these concerns. I look forward to your testimony on how you plan to lead the defense research enterprise and how you will accelerate defense innovation and technology transition. I thank the witnesses for their willingness to serve, and I look forward to their testimony. Senator Reid.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, witnesses, and for your willingness to serve and your service to date. Thank you very much. And I join the Chairman in welcoming you here to this hearing to fill these important vacancies in the Department of Defense. As we heard during the hearing we had earlier this week, managing an organization as large as the Department of Defense can be very challenging and requires strong leadership. And if confirmed, I'm confident that the nominees before us will have that strong leadership profile. Mr. Conger, who has been nominated to be the Principal Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Comptroller, has extensive experience working on national security issues. As a congressional staffer, Mr. Conger worked on budget and appropriation matters and has a deep appreciation for how the annual budget process works. In addition, Mr. Conger has overseen the energy installations and environmental portfolio at the department, providing oversight management of the Department's $850 billion real property portfolio. Mr. Conger's knowledge and experience will be critical in an era of constrained budget resources, as well as ensuring the Department finally achieves a clean audit of its financial statements, as the Chairman has indicated. Mr. Welby, who has been nominated to be the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, serves as the deputy for that position. Mr. Welby is well positioned for this job, given his strong technical background and experience both in government and industry. If confirmed, he will be responsible for ensuring that our research programs and institutions that perform cutting-edge R&D, like the Defense Labs and DARPA, are as innovative and effective as possible. I want to hear his plans to advocate for and champion those labs, their people, and the important advanced technology products that they produce for our warfighters. Ms. Starzak, who has been nominated for the position of the Army General Counsel, has extensive legal experience in positions that have prepared her well for this position. After her private sector experience, Ms. Starzak has worked in the Office of the CIA General Counsel. She served as counsel on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and currently serves as the Deputy General Counsel in the DoD's General Counsel's Office. Ms. Starzak will be joining a new command team with a new Army Secretary and Chief of Staff, where they will work together to address the many challenges that the Army faces. Mr. Parker, who has been nominated for the position of Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, appears well suited to lead Navy personnel programs. His experience in Navy General Counsel's Office and as Chief Counsel for the Maritime Administration, as well as his private sector experience, will give him a unique perspective to apply to the many important challenges he will face. Again, I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing, and I look forward to hearing from the witnesses. Thank you.
There are standard questions that are asked of all nominations, and I will go through these questions, and you can respond by simply saying I do or responding in the negative. In order to exercise its legislative and oversight responsibilities, it's important that this committee and other appropriate committees of the Congress are able to receive testimony, briefings, and other communications of information. Have you adhered to the applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes.
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 Have you assumed any duties or undertaken any actions which would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No.
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 Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established for requested communications, including questions for the record and hearings?
Yes.
Yes.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes.
Yes.
Will those witnesses be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify upon request before this committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you agree to provide documents, including copies of electronic forms of communication, in a timely manner when requested by a duly constituted committee, or to consult with the committee regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such documents?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Conger, we'll begin with you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Reid, members of the committee, it is a privilege to be here to answer your questions regarding my nomination to the position of Principal Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Comptroller. I am humbled and honored by the support I have received from President Obama.
Would you like to mention the family member who's here?
Absolutely. I'd like to introduce and offer my deepest appreciation for my wife, Christine Minami. I could not set out on this demanding path without her love and strong support.
Welcome.
I'd also like to recognize my son, Connor Minami, who's only 4 and not here today.
He'll miss it.
Yes. So I appreciate the support that I've received from the President, from Secretary Carter, who originally hired me into the Pentagon in 2009 when he was the Undersecretary for Acquisition Technology and Logistics, the support I've received from Deputy Secretary Work and Undersecretary McCord. I'd also like to recognize my dad, who, along with my grandfather and my uncle, served in the U.S. Navy and set a strong example of public service. For more than 20 years, I've worked national security issues, both as a congressional staffer, most of that working appropriations and budget issues, and in senior Pentagon positions overseeing the department's installations, environment, and energy portfolio. Each has taught me important lessons that, if confirmed, I would bring to this new and challenging role. Mr. Chairman, the defense budget details a carefully balanced set of priorities and risk with clearly more risk than any of us desire. The Department has worked to balance readiness to meet today's complex security challenges with the need to ensure that we're investing in future capabilities. As you have articulated well, the risk would be unacceptable if we were forced to adhere to the caps in the Budget Control Act. And I am glad to see that we have achieved a reprieve from those limits for 2016 and 2017. The DoD Comptroller has a critical role in providing the justification to Congress why the funds we have requested are critical to meeting our strategy. This office has the unique capability and responsibility to associate resource decisions with their real-world impacts to better inform Congress as it deliberates. As you know, this case is made more difficult by the fact that the DoD has not passed a financial audit. Without a clean audit, it is harder to make the case that we are efficiently using all of the funds Congress has provided us, even as we request more. In this environment, I believe it's absolutely critical that we dedicate ourselves to passing this audit, both for the improvement to financial management that it promises and for the credibility that it will provide to our request for more funding. If confirmed, I will work tirelessly to assist Undersecretary McCord and the Department's leadership in meeting these challenges. I am grateful for your consideration, and I look forward to your questions.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Reid, members of the committee, it is an honor to appear before you this morning as a nominee to serve as the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. I wish to thank the President and Secretary Carter for their support of my nomination. And Chairman, I'd like to also take the moment to thank my wife, Kimberly, my son, Braden, and my daughter, Claire, who are here today.
Welcome.
And I'd also like to particularly acknowledge my father, Patrick Welby, who's behind me, who served in the Army and whose service as a New York City fire officer until he was injured in the line of duty really taught me the true meaning of public service.
Welcome, sir.
Our military technology advantage is essential to supporting our nation's ability to deter aggression and to succeed in conflict. Today, our technology edge is challenged by the globalization of technology, the globalization of technical talent, and the emergence of foreign military capabilities, particularly intended to directly counter our own military strengths. This increasing competitive global technology environment demands more agile approaches to technology delivery and development and faster adoption of new, innovative solutions that can offset the growing technical capabilities of potential threats. The Department needs to commit to continuously refreshing the core technologies that sustain our defense and that mitigate technological surprise and that support our modernization efforts. The Department also needs to focus on the effectiveness and efficiency of our research and engineering establishment to ensure that the delivery of advanced capabilities can be conducted in a fiscally constrained environment. If confirmed, I am committed to ensuring that our defense research and engineering enterprise remains focused on sustaining the technological superiority of U.S. forces, both addressing the demands of our current conflicts and addressing the needs of the evolving security environment, by accelerating the delivery of advanced capabilities that can make a critical difference from laboratory to battlefield. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for your time and attention, and I look forward to answering your questions this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Reid, and members of the committee. I'm honored to appear before you today. I'd like to begin by expressing my gratitude to President Obama for my nomination, as well as to Secretary Carter for his support. I would not be here today if it were not for the family, friends, and coworkers who have supported me over the years. I especially want to thank my wonderful family, including my husband, Andrew Ferguson, who is here with me today, and my sister, Jocelyn Starzak, who's also here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to thank my parents and my two amazing children who are 3 and 6 and therefore not here today. Throughout my life, my family has taught me the value.
Next time it will be required attention for all children attendants to be here.
Throughout my life, my family has taught me the value of serving others. My goal has always been to live up to the expectations that they have set. I also want to thank those, both civilian and military, that I've had the privilege of working with during the 4.5 years I've spent serving in the Department of Defense Office of General Counsel. Their commitment to protecting America and improving the lives of the dedicated men and women who serve all of us by putting themselves in harm's way for our country inspires me every day. The role of the Army General Counsel is, first and foremost, to provide solid and timely legal advice to Army senior leadership. If confirmed, that would be my first priority. I believe my background and experience in the executive branch, the Congress, and the private sector have well prepared me to serve this function. If confirmed as the Army General Counsel, I am committed to working closely with the Army Judge Advocate leadership to address the legal challenges facing the Army. I strongly believe in the value of having civilian and military lawyers work together to offer the best possible legal advice to our clients. If confirmed, I will make every effort to live up to the confidence that has been placed in me. I'm grateful for your consideration, and I look forward to your questions.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Reid, and members of the committee. It's an honor and a privilege to be here before you today. Joining me today, I'm honored to have a wide swath of my family. My wife, Ann, my son, Franklin, his little sister, Diana, would not be able to be here today, and it's probably a good thing for everyone. My mother, Janice, my father, Franklin, my sister, Lisa, my uncle, Glenn, my cousin, Frank, my sister-in-law, Lon, and my good friend, Steve Raven.
Is there anyone who couldn't make it?
There were a couple.
Welcome to all of you. I know this is a proud moment for you.
I am honored and privileged to be here today regarding my nomination for the position of Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. Before we begin, I would like to thank President Obama, Secretary Carter, and Secretary Mavis for their support of my nomination. I also wish to express my sincere appreciation to my colleagues, both past and present, specifically those at the Departments of the Navy and Transportation and at the Maritime Administration, for whom I hold the greatest respect. I've thanked my family previously, but in particular, I would like to recognize my father, Franklin Parker, my uncle, Glenn Parker, and my cousin, Frank Harris, whose service in the Air Force and Army and whose experiences as Vietnam veterans instilled in me the deepest appreciation for our service members and the sacrifices and contributions that they routinely make for our nation. It is on the shoulders of these men and women that we all truly stand. Lastly, I wish to acknowledge, with deepest gratitude, my grandfather, Fred Curls, who passed away earlier this year at the age of 96. I thank him not only for his service in the National Guard, but also for serving as my inspiration to enter public service and for teaching me that anything is possible in our great nation. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, it is a privilege to be considered for this opportunity to serve our men and women in uniform, as well as our civilian personnel who share their mission and complement their efforts to uphold our defense. Their commitment to our nation deserves not only our respect, but a corresponding obligation to them and their families that we make every possible effort to honor and support their service. Over the course of my career, I have worked in the private sector, as well as in both defense and civilian agencies. I have performed legal and non-legal roles. I have served as an action officer, a manager, a senior executive, and as a member of agency leadership. In every context, however, the one constant has been the primacy of people. Our people conceive, create, enable, and execute everything we do. People are our greatest and most powerful asset, and this is no truer than for those who serve in our nation's defense. In this realm, it is critical that our decisions always support readiness, that we bolster the morale of our force, that we seek to create an environment that is free from harassment and abuse, and that we ensure that our personnel have the tools they need to be successful in the field and healthy at home. These needs are even more pronounced as we continue to manage multiple conflicts and threats in a highly constrained fiscal environment. If confirmed, my highest priority will be to ensure that our manpower and reserve policies and practices meet the standards that the men and women of our Navy and Marine Corps deserve. I view this not only as an honor, but as an obligation. If confirmed, I look forward to working with this committee and the Congress to provide the best for our service members and civilian personnel. In so doing, I will make every effort to reward the faith you have placed in me and that our men and women who have served have placed in us. I am truly grateful for your consideration of my nomination, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conger, we talked about an audit. For 15 years, we've been talking about an audit. For 15 years, we have legislated the requirement for an audit. For 15 years, we haven't gotten one. What do you think the chances are of getting one this time around?
So the progress that the department has made is, and the new thing that's happened even this year, is that the service budgets are under audit right now. They're not necessarily going to pass an audit this year, but they are under audit for the first time. The Marine Corps has been under audit for several years, and so there has been a considerable amount of progress.
There was a recognition of failure of the Marine Corps audit as well.
Yes. So the Marine Corps audit that had originally received a clean audit, but then later that was retracted, was because of an anomaly that was discovered and appropriately retracted. But that actually helps the rest of the audit.
The answer to my question is, you think we will have an audit this year?
I think that the budgets of the services are under audit, but they're not necessarily going to pass. Experience shows that you
When do
need
you
several
think we
years
will
of failed.
have, when do you think we will have an audit then? A complete audit, just like every other branch of government has undergone.
It's hard to predict when we will pass an
That
audit.
certainly is. You really put your finger on it. It's hard to predict, especially after 15 years of failure.
But the difference now is that we are being audited, and that process will point out what needs to be fixed. Those corrective actions will improve our chances each year, each subsequent year where we
Each
receive-
year.
Yes, yes, sir.
I can tell you that's not exhilarating to me after saying
And
each
I
year
understand.
after 15 years of failure, Mr. Conger. I'm sorry that I sound so pessimistic that the taxpayers of America, after all these years, still can't get an audit, and you're telling me that each year we will get better.
Yes, sir.
I want you to do better, okay? That's what I want.
I
And that's what the
absolutely-
Congress and the American people want. We want an audit that the American people in this committee and members of Congress can look at and then make the right decisions. Without an audit, it makes it, without us knowing those fundamental facts, it's very hard for us to legislate on behalf of the American people.
I agree, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Starzak, Congress, as you know, for years now, in the latest authorization bill, which we are told the President will be signing today or tomorrow or very soon, specifically prohibited the transfer of Guantanamo detainees to the United States in both the authorization bill and the defense appropriations bill. Does the Constitution, in your view, authorize the President to act contrary to the law, including laws he signed as President? And I'm specifically referring to the recurring rumor that's banging around out there that the President will act by executive order to close Guantanamo. Now, in your view, does the President have that constitutional authority?
Senator, I don't believe that issue would come before me as Army General Counsel, but I have no reason to question the constitutionality of those restrictions. I think the Attorney General...
I'm not asking whether you question it. I'm asking whether you believe that the President has the constitutional authority to act by executive order to close Guantanamo Bay. I just read you a list of the requirements when you come before this committee.
Senator, as I think the Attorney General testified earlier this week, I believe the statutory restrictions would prohibit transferring detainees to the United States.
Mr. Parker, same question.
Senator McCain, this is not an issue that I have worked on.
I understand that,
previously.
Mr. Parker. It's the right of this committee to ask questions that we feel are important.
Absolutely, Senator McCain. I just am not in a position to provide an answer on this particular question. It's not one that I've looked into and really have a
Well,
position on to provide.
then we'll await your written answer while you look into it. Mr. Welby?
Chairman, I'm neither a lawyer nor have any particular experience in this matter, and so I would have to go with the advice of others on this
I
topic.
understand. Mr. Conger?
Sir, I'm not a lawyer, nor have I looked into this particular issue. I would have to get back to you, sir.
Mr. Parker, the Marines recently released the results of their major research study on combat integration. Before reviewing the report, Secretary Mabus indicated he will not support any exceptions to policy to close any ground combat elements to women, and he also said that he would not even review the conclusions of the Marine study. Are you familiar with the Department of the Marine Corps' Ground Combat Element Integrated Task Force report?
I am aware of the report, Senator.
would you have made the same decision as Secretary Mavis before conducting a review of the report?
Senator McCain, I'm aware of the report, but I have not had an opportunity to review the report, and I have not spoken with Secretary Mavis. And so, without having reviewed the report and its analysis and its findings, without having spoken with the Secretary about his thought process, I can't offer an opinion on whether or not I would have made the same decision as Secretary Mavis.
Would you agree that this will be in your area of responsibility?
Absolutely, Senator McCain. Once a decision is made by the Department of the Secretary of Defense, by the Office of the Secretary of Defense, I will be closely involved in implementation of whatever decision is made.
Well, we would want to know your view on this issue, Mr. Parker, so I would hope that you would take a look at this task force report and get back to us as to your views on it. Finally, Mr. Conger, would you agree that we have a lot of work to do in accounting for both the number of personnel as well as the expenses associated with our responsibilities? For example, we don't know how many civilian employees we have. We don't know how many contract employees we have. We're thinking about a mandate on in-strength for both civilian personnel as such as we have for uniformed personnel. What would you think about that?
I think that it is critically important to know how many people we have in the department, and that the personnel office should have that information, and in order for us to be able to budget appropriately.
I thank you. I thank the witnesses.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Conger, we've had a series of very thoughtful hearings at the direction of the chairman about revisions of the Department of Defense, the Goldwater Nichols, and this week we had former Comptroller or GAO Director David Walker. We had General Pernaro and others. I will quickly reveal my lack of accounting knowledge by asking you. I got the impression that one way it might be to get our arms around the audit is to not do it individually by service, but start at the Department of Defense level. And because their materiality issues are much different than in the particular services. Again, this is a real question. Is there a different approach to the audit process that we could take that would be more effective than what we've been doing in the last several years in terms of trying to get the services to do audits and then build on them to do a DoD audit?
So I appreciate the approach that you're suggesting or contemplating. And I understand the differences in materiality that evolve from looking at the larger enterprise. The department has a strategy that has been moving the ball forward. We've been giving regular updates to this committee on the progress on that. And I do not believe that the department is planning on changing its strategy.
Again, I'm reflecting what the chairman has said and what we've all known. This is a strategy that's being pursued for 15 years, resulting in the inability to produce the audit. I guess I think it would be useful if at least you could sort of, as you push this along, think there might be an alternate way to do this. Again, these are really talented individuals who made the suggestions.
Yes. If confirmed, I would be happy to look at alternative strategies and try and figure out more effective ways to accomplish this end.
Thank you. Mr. Welby, thank you for your service, and thank you for your father's service. Thank you, sir. One of the aspects of your new responsibilities are the government laboratories. They play a key role. And at times, we get complaints or comments that they're antiquated in terms of equipment management, in terms of their ability to function as they have in the past as real incubators for change and innovation. Can you give us some thoughts about your particular approach to laboratories and how we can engage them better?
Senator, thank you. I began my career as an intern in an Army research laboratory here in Maryland and spent a decade kind of working on cutting-edge problems that really made a difference. Early GPS activities, early work on unmanned air vehicles, some of the roots of some of the artificial intelligence breakthroughs that are going on today. I think the energy and excitement that I see in the workforce in our laboratories is critical to ensuring that we are on the cutting edge of getting the capabilities that matter to our warfighters. The laboratories have served as an incubator of technology and as a coupler to take advanced technology and drive it towards military needs. I do, if confirmed, I do intend to very closely look at the state of our laboratories, the state of their capital equipment, but most importantly, I'm concerned with the state of our people, to ensure that we have the right mix of talent, the right mix of skills in our laboratories. I am particularly concerned with the graying of our laboratory workforce, and I want to make sure that we refresh the talent that will serve us in the future in the laboratories.
Thank you, Mr. Wellman. Ms. Starzak, one of the roles you'll have to play is to work very closely with the Judge Advocate General of the Army, the uniformed individual that is your counterpart. You've had extensive experience, CIA, Department of Defense, et cetera. Can you give us sort of a notion of how you intend to work and share responsibilities and emphasis?
Senator, my understanding is that the Army TJAG, General Darpino, has a number of separate responsibilities as well as sort of our joint responsibilities. I think it's very important that she be able to provide independent advice to the Secretary on the issues that are in her jurisdiction. I think we would work together very well. I know General Darpino. She's terrific.
No, she's been very helpful to this committee on a host of issues, and again, I think the combination of the two, you'll be very effective for the Secretary of the Army. Just a final question, Mr. Parker, and that is, again, in the hearings that the Chairman has, I think, very thoughtfully put together, the Goldwater Nichols issues have come up again and again. And one aspect, and he's alluded to it, is civilian personnel. As your responsibilities will include sort of the incentives for the number of, looking at how they're integrated with active duty military personnel. Can you give us any ideas as you begin of what insights or what approaches you might take to deal more effectively with civilian personnel?
Senator Reid, that's an extremely important issue, and that's one that will be one of the top priorities, if confirmed, for me, really taking a look at the existing authorities and how best we can make sure that we modernize them in order to attract, recruit, and retain the highest quality workforce that we possibly can. I know there are a number of efforts ongoing as we speak, both in terms of looking at existing authorities, also in terms of talent management, and I would continue to work, if confirmed, in those areas, as well as and I'd be open to, and I would work with the committee as well in seeking the input of the committee and the Congress for ways to best implement solutions to some of these issues. I think one last aspect that's extremely important, however, is that in whatever reforms are made, that we don't compromise readiness in the process. And so maintaining that important balance is something else that I would make sure to prioritize if confirmed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cotton.
Ms. Starzak, you were a lead investigator for the Senate Intelligence Committee Majority Staff study into the CIA's rendition, detention, and interrogation practices. In your time as a lead investigator, did you access and review a set of documents known as the Panetta Review?
Senator, I had access to materials at the CIA facility that they provided. That includes what I believe to be the Panetta Review, although it was not called that when I was on the committee. I left for the department in 2011.
Did you access and review the Panetta Review more than once?
Senator, I believe I had access to it. I don't remember at this point, 4.5 years later, how often I accessed it.
Do you believe that computer forensic analysis would indicate how many times it was accessed?
Senator, I'm sorry, I'm not a computer expert. I don't know.
Do you recall recording, making use of, or taking notes about the content of the Panetta Review?
Senator, I don't recall doing that.
As you know, the CIA believes the Intelligence Committee staff should never have had access to the Panetta Review. Are you aware of how or why the CIA computer system set up for committee staff to review CIA documents included the Panetta Review?
Senator, I have no idea. My understanding is that the computer system was set up for the committee's access, and the committee staff accessed all documents through the system that was set up.
Did you ever speak to any current or former CIA officials, staff, or contractors about making the Panetta Review accessible on this computer system?
Senator, I had no discussions about that particular document.
None whatsoever.
None with the committee, with the CIA staff, no.
Are you aware of other Intelligence Committee staffers who spoke to any current or former CIA officials, staff, or contractors about making the Panetta Review accessible on that computer system?
Senator, I just don't know.
A committee staff member or members printed out a hard copy of the Panetta Review and removed it from the secure CIA document review facility and transported it to committee offices. Under the procedures agreed to by the committee and the CIA at the time, were committee investigators free to remove hard copies of any document they wished from the secure facility without consultation and authorization by the CIA?
Senator, as I mentioned, I left the committee in 2011. I believe, based on media reports, that incident happened long after I had left the committee. I'm not familiar with the circumstances of that arrangement.
So you don't recall the agreement that the committee had with the CIA about all access to any document, not just the Panetta Review?
Senator, my understanding is that issues were supposed to be worked out with the CIA, but again, I do not know the specifics of that particular document.
Was there agreed upon process by which the CIA could authorize the removal of certain hard copies of documents from that facility?
Senator, the CIA did clear documents to be brought back to the committee's SCIF. That was certainly something that had happened. That was how the review was brought back. It was brought back through the CIA.
Are you aware if the committee gained such authorization from the CIA to remove the hard copy of the Panetta Review?
Senator, as I mentioned, I was not at the committee at the time that it was reviewed, or at least media reports suggest it was reviewed, so I just don't know.
Well, media reports suggest that it was reviewed for the first time in 2010 when you were at the committee and a lead investigator there.
Senator, you asked when it was removed. Maybe I misspoke. I meant when it was removed from the CIA facility.
When is it your understanding that it was removed from the CIA facility?
Senator, I do not know. I know it was not removed at the time I was at the committee.
Are you aware of the identity of the committee staff members who took part in printing and removing the Panetta Review?
Senator, as I mentioned, I was not at the committee at the time. All I've seen are the same media reports that everyone else has seen.
Okay, I want to call your attention to a poster that the first page of each document in the Panetta Review contains a lengthy step as shown there. In a relevant part, it reads, "This classified document should not be distributed without express permission from DRG, RDI, or CIA's Office of General Counsel. This document also contains material protected by the attorney-client and attorney work product privileges. Furthermore, this document constitutes deliberative work product protected by the deliberative process privilege. It should not be relied upon by persons outside DRG, RDI." Do you recall seeing this stamp on the Panetta Review?
Senator, it's probably more than 5 years since I would have seen it. I do not remember it at this time.
Do you recall speaking with anyone in the CIA or on the Intelligence Committee staff about seeing a stamp such as this on the Panetta Review?
Senator, I don't remember discussing it.
You were a member of the D.C. bar and the California bar during the relevant times?
Senator, I'm inactive in California, but I'm a member of the D.C. bar and inactive in California.
At the time in 2010 and
Yes, Senator.
2011? Were you aware that the D.C. and California professional responsibility rules regarding proper handling of privileged documents that may have been inadvertently disclosed by the CIA to committee staff?
Senator, I believe that the inadvertent disclosure applies to litigation issues. I think congressional oversight is significantly different. In fact, with respect to that statement, I would note that Congress actually does not recognize deliberative process privilege as being something that protects disclosure from Congress. So, for example, this committee has requested a number of documents that are protected by, that could arguably be protected by deliberative work product. The Department of Defense provides them, has provided documents as recently as this week that would be potentially subject to that privilege from outside disclosure.
And it'll be your position, if confirmed to General Counsel of the Army, that this committee is entitled to review any material that you or anyone in the Army inadvertently or unintentionally discloses to Congress?
Senator, I think the executive branch and the Congress don't always agree on the scope of privileges. I think that's actually an important thing. I think it's part of the separation of powers. We always expect tension between the executive branch and Congress on exactly what material can be disclosed. I think that the important part is comity between the two. My understanding with respect to disclosure is often that the executive branch tries to accommodate Congress to the maximum extent possible. Certainly in the context of the review, the CIA review, the committee was provided access to more than 6 million pages. Many of them were deliberative in nature. Many of them were prepared by attorneys. There was no indication at the time that that was inadvertent.
Thank you, Ms. Starzak.
Senator Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the witnesses for your service. All of you have come up within the kind of federal family, DOD certainly, but also intel agencies or DARPA or the DOT. We've just gotten a 2-year budget deal and an NDAA. The 2-year budget deal also lifts, for the second 2-year budget deal in a row, to a significant extent, the BCA caps imposed in August of 2011. In your current positions, talk about what difference it makes to getting the missions done that we have gotten a 2-year budget deal that lifts the pressure of the BCA caps. And I'll start with Mr. Conger.
So in my current responsibility set, with oversight over installations, energy and environment issues, I think it's most starkly presented in the context of facility maintenance at our installations. When we are constrained by the budget and we have choices to make as far as where to take risk, we take that risk in facility maintenance over readiness of operational forces. That's the prudent thing to do. Facilities degrade slower than readiness does. However, when there is more flexibility provided, more budget available, we are able to perform that maintenance. And frankly, it's better in the long run to do the maintenance up front. So I think that's probably the starkest place where the dynamics change.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Conger. Mr. Welby.
Senator, quickly, just the ability for stability to allow us to plan, I think, is critical. And I appreciate the efforts here to ensure that we have the stability required to allow us to plan. Science and technology advancements are made over time. It requires continuity of effort and focus. And I believe that the stability that the budget agreement offers allows us to have that focus at least over the next 2 years.
Great. Ms. Starzak.
Senator, I agree with those comments. I'm not an expert in that particular area, but I agree.
Great. Mr. Parker.
Senator, I agree with those comments as well. In my current position with the Maritime Administration at the Department of Transportation, it does help provide stability, especially for our defense sea lift programs, like our maritime security program. Being able to have that certainty for the next couple of years definitely helps to ensure that those programs can continue to operate.
The chair and ranking on this committee have really pushed the notion that we need to provide this certainty, and I would just like to say to all my colleagues, I think what the budget deal does is it starts to normalize two things. First, 2-year budgets instead of 1-year budget, which gives all of you a better planning horizon and enables more stability for the reasons you've described. And second, the notion that the BCA caps are a discipline, a starting point, a default, but not a straitjacket. For the second 2-year budget deal in a row, we've treated the BCA caps in that way, and I think that's very, very positive, and I'm interested in your testimony. Ms. Starzak, one of the issues that I'm kind of interested in is when we do the NDAA, we put a lot of policy into it, and a lot of it's legal policy. And so you've been in the General Counsel's office in the DOD and now going into the position with the Army, the largest of the service branches. Maybe the issue that we've talked about, just to use it as an example, the biggest in terms of policy is the set of reforms that we've made with respect to military sexual assault. Talk a little bit about the challenge of taking those reforms and then implementing them throughout the DOD or just within the Army, and in the particular case of the legal reforms with respect to the way we're trying to treat the sexual assault problem. What is your assessment of the progress we're making in having those reforms percolate down through the entire organization?
Senator, there have been significant reforms in recent years, particularly on the military justice side. I believe the Department is currently implementing more than 50 pieces of legislation addressing military justice and sexual assault. They've been challenges, honestly. I think the major reforms to Article 32, for example, major reforms to Article 60, which relates to the back end of prosecutions, have been significant. The Department has been doing their best to make changes to the manual for courts martial, for example, to ensure that there is common understanding of how those will be applied. But it's incremental, and I think there's been a lot of change in a very short period of time, so the Department is struggling in some ways to keep up.
Mr. Conger, I was interested in your answer to Senator McCain's questions about the audit, because I'm here more recently, coming in and there's not an audit, it seems like, are you kidding me? But I don't have the background of the history of we're going to have an audit for year after year after year. Go into this issue of who is now under audit. Talk about the 4 branches, which branches are under audit, and how long have they been under audit? So Did the Marines start before the others?
Yes, the first year that the Marine Corps budget was audited was in fiscal year 12.
And then tell me about the other service branches.
The other service branches will be under audit for their FY15 budget. That will be the first time.
For the first time. So the Marines have been under audit since 12, but haven't yet gotten a clean audit.
That's
and,
right.
And you would expect, I guess, that if the other service branches go under for the first time in 15, it's not likely that they're going to get a clean audit the first time around?
Absolutely.
But the fact was, before 12, nobody was even under audit. And so I guess the process is you put them under audit, and then you work with the service branches to get them to not only be under audit, but to start to pass audits.
Yes, sir. It's not a trivial thing to be under audit. The auditors expect a certain responsiveness. When they ask for documentation for a particular transaction, you're supposed to be able to provide that in a reasonable amount of time. We just didn't have the systems in place to be responsive at all.
And how about, is there also then a need for an audit, not just of the service branches, but kind of overall? I mean, again, I'm not an accountant, but the overall OSD enterprise, are there additional audits that really need to be done in addition to the 4 service branches?
So in addition to the 4 service branches, there are defense agencies who will have their budgets under audit. In addition to the budget parts of the audit, there will need to be an audit of inventory, of existence and completeness. Essentially, do you know everything that you've got, whether it's real property, buildings, and I work on that piece of it right now, but also every piece of equipment, every tank, every aircraft carrier, do you have that inventory comprehensive? Do you have a value associated with that? Do you know how much that book value is of that particular asset? And then documentation of all the liabilities of the department.
I've gone over time, but this is very, very critical to the committee. If Senator Manchin was here, he would now follow up and just pile on this. It's so important that this be done, and if you can make a major advance on this audit issue, then we'll put a statue of you up out here.
Thank you very much, Senator.
I'll be Senator Manchin.
Senator Tillis, on behalf of the chairman.
Thank you, Senator Reid. Ms. Starzak, you said something that made me kind of look back at the family. You were talking about the tension between the branches, and I think that's what you are seeing here. If you can't follow the discussion, just understand we're kind of doing our fiduciary responsibility for our roles. We're not, for the youngsters here, we're not trying to be mean. But I do have to ask you some questions about Guantanamo Bay, and I'm going to try and ask them in the context of the job that you'd be moving into. If the President directed the transfer of detainees from Guantanamo Bay to the United States, in your professional judgment, would the officers of the Department of Army be at legal risk of violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act?
Senator, it's unclear what role the Department of the Army would have in that, and so I think it very much depends on that question. My understanding is...
I'm not an attorney, but I know attorneys move quickly into hypotheticals when you get a response like that. So hypothetically, if we had Army officers involved in the transfer of Gitmo detainees, do you think that they could potentially be in violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act?
Senator, my understanding is that there are appropriations restrictions that address the transfer of Guantanamo detainees to the United States. I don't have any reason to think the Army officers would necessarily be involved in that effort.
But it would seem to me in the hypothetical that in a way you could extend your legal judgment should the Army be involved to anyone else, because it's going to be one branch of the services. So I think if in the hypothetical they were involved, do you believe that they would be in violation or potential violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act? Senator,
Anti-Deficiency Act prohibitions, if there's a restriction in an appropriations bill, that potentially leads to an Anti-Deficiency Act violation. So if something is done inconsistent with a restriction in an Appropriations Act, yes, it would be a violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act.
Okay, and Ms. Starzak, thank you for that answer. The administration typically invokes Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution when they're arguing against the Anti-Deficiency Act. What is your legal opinion on whether the Faithful Execution Clause still applies in a situation where there's an affirmative prohibition against the use of funds under the law?
Senator, I think it's very circumstance dependent. I think you have to look at exactly what the law is, potentially exactly what the constitutional infirmity might be. What we'll do is I'd like maybe we can either get another hypothetical or get to the specific circumstance, and we'll submit that for the record for follow-up questions. Thank you. Mr. Conger, it's amazing to me when you think about the Department of Defense, and every single private sector company that they work with has to do an audit every year, and they've done it every year for a long, long time. In fact, it's probably a requirement for them to do business with the Department of Defense. As somebody who came from an audit firm,
it is remarkable to me that we're having difficulty auditing an organization that has a $500 billion budget. And as somebody, if you were thinking about a board of directors and you came back to the board every year and said, well, we just can't get the audit working, what's the likelihood that they're going to make an investment in an enterprise that I'd like to make more investments in? My question for you is, if they fail to meet the audit-ready status, if any part of the organization fails to meet the audit-ready status by 2017, who specifically should be held accountable for that failure?
So it depends on which part of the organization isn't meeting its responsibilities. People should be held accountable for those things that they are responsible for and have the authority to be able to execute.
We'll submit for the record. I want to know the specific person who should lose their job if they fail again to produce an audit-ready status in 2017. But instead of putting you on the spot here, we'll put you on the spot in the written questions. This also relates to Guantanamo Bay. If you're confirmed as the Comptroller, would you support the use of appropriated funds to execute the transfer of detainees from Guantanamo Bay to the United States?
So not having the simple answer, Senator, is that we should be following the provisions in the law. And so I would expect us to do that. I would rely on legal advice to decide exactly how we apply those funds.
Well, we'll give you, because I know that we'll have the opportunity to submit questions. That's another specific question that I would like to get your answer to. And I'm sensitive to time, Mr. Parker. I just have a question for you. I'll try and get in under the wire. The Marine Corps recently released the results of their major research study on combat integration. Are you familiar with that report?
I am aware of the report, Senator.
Are you familiar with the Department of Marine Corps' recommendations? And specifically, before I ask that question, given the time, do you support the decision of Secretary Mavis to not allow the Marine Corps' recommendation to go before the Secretary of Defense?
I am aware that the Secretary has provided a recommendation to the Secretary of Defense, but I'm not aware of it.
Do you think it's wise to take the people who are on the ground that have completed this extensive research to not have that be instructive to the Secretary's decision-making process?
I'm not aware of the Secretary's decision-making process.
So do you or do you not agree with the decision of Secretary Mavis to not allow the Marine Corps' recommendation to go forward to the Secretary of Defense?
I'm not aware of what the Secretary Mavis forwarded to the Secretary of Defense. I'm not aware of what was...
It's my understanding that his recommendation is not to allow the Marine Corps' recommendations to go to the Secretary of Defense. Do you think that's a good or bad idea?
I haven't spoken with Secretary Mavis about his thought process and about his review of the report.
We'll submit that for the record, so you'll have the opportunity to speak with the Secretary. This is just another hypothetical question. If you extend the thought process that I think Secretary Mavis may have, do you believe that women should be required to register for the draft?
That's a complex question that would require a variety of
It's actually a pretty simple question if you take a look at Secretary Mavis's apparent policy trajectory. So that's another one where, given that I guess it may be complex, that'll be another one we'll submit for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tillis. On behalf of Chairman McCain, let me recognize Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Starzak, I just want to clarify the record on this business of the Panetta review. When did you leave the Intelligence Committee?
Senator, I left in May of 2011.
And when was the removal of the document and taken to a secure facility here in the Senate?
Senator, I don't know the exact date. I was not on the committee at the time. It was certainly after I left the committee.
Late 2013. Does that sound correct?
That's approximately what my understanding from media reports.
In other words, you had been gone from the committee for 2 years when this action took place.
Yes, Senator.
And you had nothing to do with it whatsoever.
No, Senator.
Thank you. I just was confused by the prior line of questioning and wanted to clarify that. Mr. Welby, one of the issues that we are continually talking about here is how to develop technology and how to get it into the military, into the hands of our military in a timely way. Talk to me about how we can accelerate the adoption of technology and handle the whole issue of R&D in the Defense Department.
Senator, in the commercial sector, time to market is what drives business success. And I believe increasingly speed is going to be a critical measure for our research and development enterprise. I believe that we need to exercise the department's muscles in prototyping and demonstration, the tools that allow us to take capabilities that are developed in laboratory, in industry, defense and non-defense, and put them into a military context, get operators exposed to those ideas, to short-circuit the long requirements process that we have today.
Specifically, do you intend some kind of reorganization or restructuring in order to make that happen? Just saying it here in this committee isn't going to make it happen. If Senator Inhofe was here, he would tell you that currently it takes 23 years to get a new airframe from conception to the tarmac and into flight. That's unacceptable.
Senator, I entirely agree. Two things that have happened recently that I've had a hand in that have been working to accelerate that process. We have shifted one of the 4 offices in ASDR&E and renamed it to focus it on concept prototyping as a way to rapidly move technology forward, to accelerate that process of moving material from the lab into the field. But I think most importantly, we've begun structural changes to the way we buy. With this committee's support, the department has refocused its efforts on modular open system architectures, on ways that we can plug and play technologies, new and emerging technologies into existing systems, so we don't have to go through that long life cycle with a tightly integrated system. Today, if you buy a computer, you can plug new cards into it to increase its capability over time. We want our military systems to have that same kind of plug-and-play upgradability to allow us to insert technology faster over time.
I would urge you to pursue that aggressively because it seems to me that is one of the serious problems that if we're going to build, for example, the new Ohio class, it's going to have a 40-year life. It has to be designed in such a way as to be upgradable. Otherwise, it's obsolete the day it hits the water.
I agree entirely.
The other issue with R&D, we had a very interesting hearing here a couple of weeks ago about carriers. And it became apparent through the discussion that the overruns on the new carrier are largely attributable to the fact that we're doing R&D while we're building the ship. How do we separate R&D from construction of a new class of weapon system?
Senator, I believe that there's a series of questions that need to be asked at the start of any modernization program, any acquisition program, focused on risk, and particularly the technological risk, the risk associated with the core underlying technologies, with the manufacturing technology we plan to use, with the technology we would use to integrate those systems. In 2009, this committee established the Deputy Secretary of Defense for System Engineering position, the position I currently hold, to advise the Undersecretary and Secretary on technical risk on programs. And I've been doing my best over that period of time to kind of bring that conversation forward. I think we've done a much better job over the last 5 years in terms of not starting programs without a clear understanding of the maturity of the capabilities that go into them. That discipline is critical to ensuring that we can manage the cost and schedule reliability of our programs.
Well, you have some challenges with Ohio class coming, the new strike bomber coming. We're talking about some major weapon systems, and I hope that you'll focus very intensively on time and risk. I think those are the 2 factors. Mr. Conger, I'm out of time, but I just want to join my colleagues in saying there's no more important mission from the financial point of view than getting this audit system in place. I tell people in Maine that we can't audit the Department of Defense and their jaws drop. We got to fix that.
I understand, Senator.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator King. On behalf of the chairman, Senator Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Starzak, I just want to kind of follow up and give you a little more context on the, you've been getting a lot of questions on Gitmo, and I think what it does, it reflects obviously an area of focus that this committee's been very interested in. The chairman, Senator Ayotte, all of us really. There's provisions in the NDAA that looks like the president's going to sign that. But I think you see some of the frustration because it actually represents a broader frustration with a administration and a White House that sometimes seems to blatantly, in a lot of our views, ignore the law and do what they think they can do despite the fact that the law or the Constitution says otherwise. It's been kind of a theme, and it crosses well beyond military issues. So let me just ask a couple of questions, and even a hypothetical or two that relate to this kind of. So the oath of office that the members of the military take, that actually all of you take, to whom or to what are you pledging an oath to?
Senator, the oath is to the Constitution of the United States.
Correct. And so all the members of the military, when they take their oath, is it to the same entity?
Yes, Senator.
So let's say that, kind of like what the AG said recently in her testimony, that it seems pretty clear that under the current law and the law that the President's getting ready to sign, that the authority to close Gitmo resides with the Congress. And I'm not going to ask you if you agree with that or not, but let's say you do agree with that. Let's say you look, and you're a smart lawyer, that you see that you think that's correct. It seems like the Attorney General of the United States was leaning that way in testimony. And it would be good to know, for written testimony, if you can provide your answer on that. Once you look at the NDAA provision, I'm not going to ask you here right now, but let's assume that you look at the NDAA provision, you get back to this committee, you say you think that the authority to close Gitmo firmly resides with the Congress of the United States. And then the White House, regardless of that, says they're going to do it anyways. And as the chairman said, there are some rumblings along those lines. You're the General Counsel of the Army. What would you do? What would you do? If you came out with a written opinion, maybe it wasn't public, but maybe it was internal, saying you can't do this, Mr. President, and then the White House overrules you and says we're doing it anyways. What would you do as General Counsel of the United States Army?
Senator, I think if confirmed as Army General Counsel, my role would be to mitigate against Army risk of legal implications for the Army. So I would specifically look at the legal implications for the Army. I think that would be a significant challenge, obviously, if there was a disagreement. Ultimately, though, I would point out—
You thought the President was violating the law or the Constitution, and you had, in a written statement, stated that, either publicly or to the White House, and they said, hey, forget it, we're doing it anyways, what would you do?
Senator, like I said, I think that the importance would be for my written legal advice to apply to the Army. I think you can obviously, there are internal ways to ensure that your legal opinion is heard. Ultimately, though, the lawyer for the executive branch is the Department of Justice, so it's really up to the Attorney General to make a final determination on interpretation of legal provisions or on—
So you wouldn't resign if you thought that the White House was undertaking actions that were clearly contrary to the law or the Constitution?
Senator, I think you would have to look very carefully at the circumstances. It's very hard to talk about that as a hypothetical issue. It's hard to determine what would happen.
Okay, so just for the record, in terms of your written comments, if you could get back to us on, take a look at the NDAA provision, take a look at what the Attorney General is saying, and if you can directly answer the question, does the President of the United States, in light of the NDAA, have the authority to unilaterally, without any congressional authorization, shut down Gitmo? Can you get back to us on that?
Senator, I will look at that.
Can you get back to us on
Yes,
that?
yes, Senator.
Mr. Parker, you know, one of the big issues that I know you probably recognize, it's an issue that all of us are concerned about, are the high rates of suicide among military members, among our veterans. I know that you talked about in your testimony that you support efforts to encourage resilience among sailors and Marines and their families. I appreciate that. Do you have any specific initiatives or ideas to help prevent suicide among active duty members or members of the reserve? I'm a reservist in the Marines. Like a lot of members of the military, I've seen the devastation that suicide can have with regard to units. And are you familiar with the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act that the Congress passed at the beginning of this year?
Senator, every suicide is a tragedy, and I know that I understand that the department is working very hard to try to do what it can to reduce the numbers of suicides. I know there are a number of programs in place that is currently administering to really help individuals can come forward and seek help to help others to intervene when they see that there is a situation that might lead down that road. And I know it's something that, if confirmed, is something I will take extremely seriously. I'll try to continue to implement and work through the programs that exist, and also see if there are other ways to help address this terrible issue. And I'll be happy to work with the committee as well in seeking the committee's ideas on how best to address it also.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Sullivan. On behalf of Chairman McCain, Senator Donnelly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the entire group, to Mr. Parker and to everybody else, we've been working on the suicide issue for a long time now, for a number of years. Last year we were able to get in the NDAA that every service member can get a mental health assessment. This year's NDAA, I worked together with Joni Ernst and Roger Wicker and John Bozeman. We were able to get additional mental health assistance through what's called the care package that for private practitioners, mental health professionals, they can get special training to make them service member friendly. Physician's assistants we've been talking about as well. So if you will keep this on the front of the burner, because we lost over 400 young men and women last year to suicide that were active duty, guard, and reserve combined. It's critically important for each one of them. That's a brother or a sister, mom or dad, son or daughter who is gone, and lives have been turned completely upside down. So you all work in different areas. You're the Comptroller, you're in Manpower and Reserve, but it will touch each and every one of you each and every day, and we appreciate your efforts to stay on top of that. Mr. Welby, I wanted to ask you specifically, in regards to your efforts, the importance of DoD's R&D efforts to maintain our military's technological edge. As we work to improve collaboration across government, academic, and private sector enterprises, and this is something that I know is critical to our whole country, but also to Mr. Heinrich because of his home state. How do you view the role and the value of our military labs in the long term? And to my state, too, because of the labs there.
Of course. And, Senator, I believe the DoD labs are a critical resource for the department. I believe that they represent the key engine by which we map technology from the larger academic and private sector into those domains that are militarily critical. There are things in our laboratories that no one else will do. The key efforts we have in propulsion, in energetics, the military-specific IT work that goes on, our biomedical teams. There's an amazing caliber of people and talent in our laboratories. I think it's critical that we preserve those. I think it's critical that we couple them to operational needs. And it's critical we connect them to a much larger community, globally and in academia, to ensure that we're getting talent and ideas flowing into our laboratory.
One of the things we've seen recently is the sale of IBM's semiconductor manufacturing business to a foreign-held company. It pretty much threw a wrench into our trusted foundry program. And so what I'm wondering is where we are with a strategy to manage supply chain risk for microelectronics going forward.
Senator, the department reacted to the concern over the sale of the IBM Trusted Foundry to the Global Foundries group. We have built a series of mitigations to the loss of that capability, a near-term mitigation that ensures that the trusted facility remains available to the department for a period of time, that allows us to make lifetime buys of critical parts that come off that line. It preserves the security context in which we ensure trust in that facility, at least for the near term. In the long term, we need to recognize that the globalization of the microelectronics sector, which is microelectronics being so critical to our defense technology, is going to require us to adapt the way we do business in microelectronics. We're going to need to be smarter about how we ensure the integrity of the devices we buy.
Well, one of the other areas we'll probably have to continue to increase on is detection of counterfeit and similar things, isn't it?
I agree, and that's part of our strategy, is to ensure that the parts that we do buy are in fact trustworthy. And our efforts with Joint Federated Analysis Center, the work going on at places like Crane or at the Indian National Labs that are supporting this nationwide network that allows us to look into electronics, ensure that they do only the things that we want them to do, is going to be critical to that long-term strategy.
Thank you. I'm just about out of time, but I want to ask Mr. Conger. You know, the issue of audits is critical to us. You've heard it from other members as well. Do you have an audit game plan, a list of metrics that we can follow, whether we are on target, whether you have the people you need to do the work you need to create this audit culture across the board, that by this year we expect to be at this point, by the following year we expect to be at this point? So we have a roadmap as opposed to just hoping that we can get somewhere on this.
Yeah, the department does have such a plan. It provided an update on that plan on Monday, I believe, to this committee, and we can certainly provide that.
And will you update that if you're in that position, is what I'm asking?
Absolutely. I would be
Okay.
intimately involved in updating that plan regularly.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Ayotte, on behalf of Chairman McCain.
I thank the chair. I want to thank all of you for being here and your family as well. Mr. Conger, I wanted to ask you, you're currently performing the duties of Assistant Secretary of Defense for Energy Installations and Environment. In that capacity, you're responsible for oversight of DoD's environmental cleanup programs. As you know, in 2014, chemicals used in Air Force firefighting foam were discovered in the well water in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And this is a very concerning issue for my constituents in that area. The so-called PFCs have been associated with certain types of cancer. Together with Senator Shaheen, I've worked closely with the Air Force, the EPA, the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, to ensure the Air Force cleans up the mess it made and the federal government provides full support to the local community. Mr. Conger, do you agree that it's important for the Air Force to clean up the mess that was created in the Portsmouth area in the well water and make every effort to notify personnel who may have been exposed to these PFCs and provide necessary support for the local community?
Senator, I absolutely agree that that is important. I've been in regular contact with Miranda Ballantyne, my Air Force counterpart, who's been working very hard on this issue personally and has gone up and I think done town halls up in the community as well.
Well, I appreciate that, and when you're confirmed for this new position, I would appreciate your continued focus and attention on making sure the people of Portsmouth are fully supported, people are notified that may have been exposed to PFCs, including military personnel, and that we do all we can to ensure that obviously the mess is cleaned up and that anyone who needs any assistance on the health end gets it.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Starzak, I wanted to just clarify one thing. You've been Deputy General Counsel for Legislation at the Department of Defense since May of 2011, is that right?
That's correct, Senator.
And in that capacity, since you've been in that position, the law has really been the same with regard to transfers from Guantanamo. The defense authorization, at least since I've been on this committee, and since you've been Deputy General Counsel, has said that it does prohibit transfers from Guantanamo to the United States of America. Would you agree with that?
Senator, yes, with respect to domestic transfers, the law has not significantly changed.
Right. Obviously, there's been changes on the international transfers. And also on the military construction appropriation, and the provision has essentially been the same, which is prohibiting resources going toward modification or construction in the United States of America.
That's correct, Senator.
So, so I know that Senator Sullivan had asked you, we're going to give you some time to review the provisions, but you've already been Deputy General Counsel. The provisions have been what the provisions have been. So I want to make sure I understand, do you believe those provisions are constitutional?
Senator, as I said to Senator McCain, I don't believe, or I have no reason to doubt the constitutionality of those provisions. As you mentioned, the restrictions have been in place for some time. We have abided by them to date.
And that's what I think that's what we all really want to be assured of. I know that you know, as the General Counsel for the Army, the reality is, I was just in Guantanamo, and most of the guards there are in the Army. So this is going to be a direct issue for you to face as Army General Counsel if the President makes the decision that he is not going to follow this law. Would you recommend that the president follow the law?
Senator, my understanding is that the department is, certainly the department, but the administration writ large is looking to work with Congress on those provisions. I think that, as the Attorney General stated, it's very important to follow the law.
Well, I appreciate that. I do have a question. So on May 31st of 2014, there was the so-called Taliban 5 transfer that occurred. And you were Deputy General Counsel at that point for legislation. And the law at that time provided, and in clear violation of the law, Congress was not given 30 days notification of the transfers of those 5 very dangerous individuals in exchange for one of the prisoners of war, Bo Bergdahl. So I wanted to ask you, were you aware of that transfer in advance, and did you advise both the Secretary of Defense and anyone in the White House of what the law was and what the law they were supposed to follow at the time in notifying us?
Senator, I was not involved in the legal determination about whether the 30-day notice would apply at that time.
In any way?
I was not involved in the legal analysis on that point.
Were you aware of the transfer in advance?
Very shortly in advance, not at the time, like the day before, basically.
And so you didn't raise the issue of the law?
Senator, I think at that point, the Department of Justice had issued or had concluded that the 30-day notice did not apply in the very specific circumstances of that case, because it was an attempt to save the life of Sergeant Bergdahl.
Well, it's not how I read the provision, but I do appreciate your answer on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Senator Heinrich, please.
Thank you. Mr. Welby, welcome. I have a couple of questions for you. And first, I wanted to get your thoughts on the direction of directed energy in the coming years. I started my career in directed energy at Air Force Research Labs, then Phillips Labs, couple of decades ago, let's say. But a lot has changed, and in some very positive ways in recent years. And I think this is an area where we're once again really seeing a great focus and some real opportunities. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on where you see those opportunities and what specific programs within directed energy that you would be advocating for in this position.
Senator, I have also had a long engagement and very effective engagement with the folks out at Kirtland on directed energy, of course. And it's always been one of these technologies that's just another 10 years away, but I think it's here. I think we now are realizing the opportunities of those years of investment in this capability. I point to the Navy's deployment on the Ponce of a directed energy system as a prototype for close-in defense. The Navy's been talking about that demonstration publicly. I think it's an example of the near-term viability of directed energy as a real game changer for future military operations. I am very excited about the ability of solid-state lasers today to scale in interesting ways. The ability for fiber laser technology to really now begin to see its fruition. And quite frankly, also the competing technology of solid-state bar lasers and what's happening in those areas. I think that we're only limited by imagination and how we might apply these technologies. I think many of the power challenges, diode brightness challenges are now being resolved. And so I'm very excited about it. And I think that we have teams that are thinking not only about the technology now, but thinking about their application. And I think that's a very exciting time for directed energy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I look forward to working with you through this transition because it's, as you said, historically, it's always been something that's a few years away, and now we're seeing real opportunities for application. I think it's important that we make that transition and start fielding these technologies in ways that can really support our warfighters. The MILCON process has done, I think, an incredible job of making sure that we adequately modernize our bases around the country. Even at times when resources have been, relatively limited. I want to ask you about the prioritization of the MILCON towards our DoD labs. Are we doing enough there to make sure that our labs are actually modernizing at the pace to support their missions.
Senator, I recognize the many competing demands for the pool of military construction dollars. Often, of course, operational requirements challenge the long-term investment in our research facilities. I do believe that the provisions that allow us to appropriate, that allow us to reallocate a certain fraction of our RDT investment into near-term modernization and maintenance provides an excellent mechanism to allow laboratory directors to cover those most critical needs. But I expect that as we start to think about the future of our laboratories, we'll be identifying opportunities where we will see challenges in terms of our facilities and the need to think about new capabilities, new test facilities, new experimental facilities. And we need to be thinking about how we balance that in the overall request.
Thank you very much. I'll yield back, Chairman.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Heinrich. The situation is that Senator McCain will not be returning. I have to go to the floor for the beginning of the debate on the FUD bill. So I would propose unanimous consent that at the conclusion of Senator Gillibrand's testimony, because Senator King has already had an opportunity, excuse me, her questioning, that the hearings be adjourned. Is there any opposition? Hearing no opposition, Senator Gillibrand.
Isn't there something mischievous we could do while McCain's not here?
I ask unanimous consent.
I'm trying to keep my title as the most boring person in the United States Senate. There's no mischief allowed.
Yes, sir. Ms. Starzak, there was a report issued yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. It was published by the Associated Press, and it was criticizing the military justice system for concealing cases of child sexual abuse. This report found that just over half of sex offenders in military prisons were child sex offenders, and many of them are serving lesser prison terms as a result of lenient plea deals. More needs to be done to protect children from sexual predators. Additionally, this report highlights the lack of transparency in court-martial proceedings. For example, transcripts and pretrial agreements are only available through FOIA requests, which is obviously not the case for civilian courts. What can be done to improve our military justice system in trying to punish child sex offenders, and how can we increase transparency in the military justice system, such as moving it to PACER or a PACER-like system like we have in the civilian world? And why does a military judge have no knowledge of or no ability to impact plea deals? Would you support changing that?
Senator, I am aware of the article. I did read it. Obviously, any incidents of child sexual abuse is absolutely horrific. I think the department needs to do all it can to ensure that we don't have that problem, that we prevent it in the first instance. And I think the department is certainly interested in pursuing changes if necessary to ensure that. With respect to your question on transparency, that is something the department has been looking at very closely over the past few months. I anticipate that the department is likely to have a recommendation on that front that will come to Congress, hopefully in the near future.
And how do you think we can increase our confidence in the military justice system? In the context of military sexual assault, you have a 62% retaliation rate for people who do actually have the courage to come forward and report that they've been sexually assaulted. What do you think the best approach is to stop retaliation and change the climate?
Senator, I think unfortunately retaliation is a very difficult problem to tackle. I don't think it's entirely military justice oriented. I think it's very important to change climate with respect to retaliation. I think one of the main issues that the department has been looking at are ways to get at that problem. And I think that 62% is obviously completely unacceptable. Victims have to have a voice in the process. They have to feel like they can come forward. That's critical for the integrity of the military. So I certainly share your concerns with respect to that. I think the department has been looking at the retaliation problem very closely, and hopefully we will come up with some recommendations on that issue.
Okay. And some have used the argument that there are insufficient numbers of military lawyers to implement the Military Justice Improvement Act, and you appear to agree that more lawyers are needed in your advanced policy questions, where you said to address emerging requirements, including special victim capabilities and special victims counsel. The Army JAG Corps is planning to grow. How do you reconcile this plan to grow the JAG Corps to address what we all agree is a top concern for the military, with claims that there are insufficient numbers of judge advocates to implement MJIA?
Senator, my understanding is that the Military Justice Improvement Act requires attorneys at the 06 level, which is relatively high, very high in the military justice world. So I think that there are not the numbers of 06s necessary. So I don't think those two are necessarily inconsistent. I think the growth that we're seeing is at the prosecutor level, is at the people who are actually in court level, not at the 06 level.
I think the bill only says the decision maker has to be 06 or above, which is not dissimilar to the current decision making for non-lawyers who are commanders. But the people involved in these cases can be more junior. But there seems to be a need to professionalize the lawyers within the military so that they actually get some specialized training. In the civilian world, for example, only very rare DA's offices have successful records for prosecuting rape cases, such as the Manhattan DA's office, where they've had a victims crime unit since the 70s. Because they've specialized, because they have allowed seniority to develop amongst their prosecutors, they actually can take some of the hardest cases and actually get convictions. Have you considered a way to professionalize the prosecutor's office within the military so that we can get better conviction rates and get better prosecution of these very tough cases?
Senator, one of the things the changes that we've seen in recent years is the implementation of a special victims prosecutor program in the Army. So I understand that there is now a set of prosecutors in the Army who are more experienced, who oversee the prosecution of sexual assault cases. They tend to be people with significantly more experience in military justice, and they also do, during the course of their training, do a 2-week detail to a DA's office to learn specifically how special victims units work. So I think that is an important thing to look at. I think they've certainly been developing in that area.
So I'd like you, for the record, to give me some recommendations for how we can professionalize all of the services, prosecution units, so that we can really make the military the state of the art in terms of being able to prosecute effectively violent crimes in the military. Thank you.
Senator King, did you have any additional? Good. Ms. Starzak, I just had to leave to go to a hearing on a permanent subcommittee on investigations, of which I am a member, and the issue is child abuse and sexual exploitation. It's thanks to technology, it has become a much more serious issue. So it's not part of the military, but it's not. It is an issue that, because we are all volunteer force, spills over into the military. So I hope you'll have a look at that issue and ways that it may apply to the United States Army. It's a very unpleasant subject to discuss, and some of us shy away from it, but it is a growing problem in America and the world, rather than one that's getting smaller. So I hope you'll take the time to look at that and how it relates to the men and women who are in the military. And by the way, on the issue of these issue of sexual assaults, I hope you'll look at a number of the measures that we have already put in this year's defense authorization bill, a number of measures over the last 2 years. If you think those measures are inadequate, we would be more than happy to listen to any recommendations that you have to improve. I'm very happy with the work of particularly Senator Lindsey Graham, who is a JAG lawyer for some 33 years, who I think struck the right balance in the legislation that we passed. Senator Gillibrand has been heavily involved in this issue as well. So we look forward to working with you. We thank all the witnesses. There may be some follow-up questions that hopefully we can get in before the end of the week, when Congress takes a well-deserved rest for a week, and we will we will try to our incompetent and insubordinate staff seems to be amused by that comment. So, and we'll try to get, when we get back, your nominations reported out of the committee into the floor of the Senate as soon as we get back. Hopefully we can get that done and let you get to work. So I thank the witnesses. I especially thank all the family members who have come here today. And I know that it's a moment of great pride for them as you are nominated by the President of the United States to assume great positions of responsibility and authority. So I thank you for your willingness to serve, and don't think you're going to enjoy coming before this committee. Thank you. This hearing is adjourned.